Hold on, this gets strange. Hundreds of millions of people have spent more than 500 years using a name that started with a geographical mistake. One wrong assumption by a sailor changed history so completely that the label is still around today. You're watching Fact Harbor, and the story is even weirder than it sounds. Imagine meeting someone, getting their identity completely wrong, and then having the entire world repeat that mistake for centuries. Sounds impossible, right? Well, that's exactly what happened. But here's the real mystery. If everyone knows it was a mistake, why didn't the name disappear? Most people have heard the basic version of the story. Christopher Columbus sailed across the Atlantic in 1492, got lost, and called Native Americans Indians because he thought he had reached India. Case closed, right? Not quite, because if that were the whole story, the name should have vanished the moment Europeans realized they weren't in Asia. Maps were corrected, new continents were discovered, entire empires changed their understanding of the world, yet somehow the word Indian survived. So what kept it alive? And why did generations continue using a name everyone knew was based on a mistake? The answer begins in a world that looked very different from ours. When people picture Columbus, they often imagine a clueless explorer who accidentally bumped into America and refused to admit he was wrong. There's some truth to that image. After landing in the Caribbean, Columbus believed he had reached islands near Asia. He called the people he encountered Indios, a Spanish term referring to people from the Indies, a broad European name for parts of Asia, connected to trade routes and spices. But here's the detail most people never hear. Even after multiple voyages, Columbus remained convinced he was near Asia. Meanwhile, other explorers started noticing something didn't add up. The plants were unfamiliar, the animals were unfamiliar, the geography made no sense. The evidence kept piling up, and then a much bigger realization arrived. Within a few decades, European explorers began understanding that these lands were not Asia at all. They were part of an entirely separate landmass unknown to Europeans. By the early 1500s, mapmakers were already redrawing the world. A cartographer named Martin Wald-Seemüller even helped popularize the name America, based on explorer Amerigo Vespucci, who argued that these territories were part of a new world. So the mistake had been exposed, which raises the obvious question. If Europe knew these weren't India or the Indies, why keep calling the people Indians? Because by then, the word had become something much more powerful than a simple description. It had become a category. Once European governments, traders, missionaries, and colonists started using the term, it spread into laws, official documents, treaties, maps, and everyday language. Think about how hard it is to change a name once it appears in millions of records. Now imagine trying to do that across entire empires. The label stuck because institutions kept using it. British colonies used it, Spanish authorities used it, French officials used it. Later, the government of the United States used it too. And there was another reason. Native peoples across North America were not one single group. There were hundreds of nations, cultures, and languages. Europeans often ignored those differences and lumped everyone into one broad category. It was inaccurate, but it was convenient. Over time, Indian stopped meaning person from India in the minds of many Europeans. Instead, it became a separate label, referring specifically to the indigenous peoples of the Americas. A mistake had slowly transformed into a tradition, but the story still isn't over. Here's the twist that surprises many people. Today, the term doesn't completely disappear, even among Native communities. Some indigenous people strongly prefer Native American, others prefer indigenous. Some identify primarily by their tribal nation, such as Navajo Nation or Cherokee Nation, and some still use American Indian. Why? Partly because the term appears in centuries of treaties, legal documents, and organization names. It's woven into history and law. For some people, reclaiming the term became easier than erasing it. So the word survived, not because everyone agreed with it, but because history left a very long shadow. What's fascinating is that this isn't really a story about geography. It's a story about how language works. A word can start as a mistake, travel through governments, maps, and generations, and eventually become part of the world itself, even when everyone knows where it came from. So the next time you hear the word Indian used for Native Americans, remember what's hiding behind it. A sailor searching for Asia, a world map that was still incomplete, and a misunderstanding so enormous it lasted more than 5 centuries. One wrong turn across the Atlantic ended up changing how entire peoples were labeled forever. And if your brain just spent 5 minutes thinking, wait, we've all been repeating a navigation error? Then maybe hit subscribe to Fact Harbor. After all, history occasionally feels like humanity accidentally leaving autocorrect on for 500 years. And somehow, the typo never got deleted.